Hello and welcome to the Inquisitorial Archive. My name is Kevin O'Rourke and today I'll be reviewing Tome of Fate for Black Crusade, published by Fantasy Flight Games. Tome of Fate is the first... Well, there are supplements before it, such as the GM's kit, which is, and one of the adventure kits. But this is the first. This one is focused primarily on things to do with followers of Tzeentch and demons of Tzeentch. It goes into details and a few different things as well, but I'll get into that shortly. This world, to be honest, of all the Warhammer 40k RPG books, although they give very brief details on the various different worlds of Screaming Vortex, they give more in these books. Of all of the 40k RPG series, Black Crusade is one where you're, particularly if you're not setting it in Screaming Vortex, which is the default setting, you're more than likely able to get away with it a bit more because it's so fluid and able to go in different places that you don't need stuff. Now in this they do have a lot of very interesting options. It's not all Tzeentch stuff, but it's primarily Tzeentch stuff. This is the Tzeentchian book. You get a big long section talk about Tzeentch and these demons, as well as you get details on the Alpha Legion and the Thousand Sons. What's very cool is you have 4 new archetypes, but these are more advanced archetypes that you have to have the game starting at a higher level or bringing a character with the GM's permission. I'll talk about each of these because there's only 4 of them. The first one is the Thousand Sons Sorcerer, which is pretty cool. I've got a player playing one of my games, one of them. He's done very lucky with the Gifts of Chaos, but it's been working out. You start off at a much higher level with them, so compared to regular sorcerer, he starts off with unnatural trait willpower and an ability called Rubric of Archman. Their special ability, it's pretty cool. It's one of the reasons you're getting the unnatural trait willpower, and they work out. You also get Tzeentchian Inferno bolts. So you get 2 clips of them, which you can fire, and if you're Tzeentch aligned and you're firing these from a bolt weapon, it gets the warp quality while you're using this specialist ammunition, which is pretty cool. And it gives a few ways of wiring the Screaming Vortex, different things, as well as brief details on the Legions. You also have Alpha Legionnaires. Oh, the Thousand Sons Sorcerer, you're starting off aligned Tzeentch. The Alpha Legionnaires are the next ones, and they begin play as unaligned. Alpha Legionnaires, you get stuff like Chameleon Cloak, and you get like a lot of the skills you'd expect the Alpha Legion to get, a bit of choice in them in that regard. Their special abilities are quite cool. One of them, once per session, you can spend an entry point. You can say to him, hey, I'd like to have a contact from my, contact being the Alpha Legion, involved with that objective. This doesn't mean the contact actually necessarily likes you, but it means you should be able to attempt to deal with them. You might have a hefty negative or positive potentially in dealing with this individual, depending on the circumstances. Obviously it's up to the GM. Also, I believe, what's the other ability? Insurrectionist. Once per session, the Alpha Legionnaire Space Marine may make a challenging scrutiny test. If successful, that's the goal. Once per session. Actually, I don't think you need to spend anything for that. The other one is you can use your deceive skill instead of opposed infamy, because you're quite good at lying, you're good at manipulating people, so it's pretty cool. So you can use usually you can use infamy to do like a opposed infamy test to see like, well, who's got more infamy and what can be good here. So you can trick people into maybe thinking you're another Alpha Legionnaire, maybe not that you're another Alpha Legionnaire, but those events that happened there, well, that was you, that wasn't and you know full well the guy from the 4th Grand Company, he won't mind, or you hope he won't mind. And then we've got the Casal Magister and Material, which are based on one of the worlds. Well, I quite like Casal, QSAL, but it's a nice world. I have a problem with the mechanics of these guys. Once more, you should be quite high, as with the Alpha Legion and the Argus. All the archetypes in this book are higher level than normal. You get a few nice abilities, but I really don't think that the Magister and Material Casal guy is balanced. Your special ability, the Magus Supreme, is when you get a psychic power. When you get a Perils of the Warp, you can basically choose for someone else or other people, and you can choose for them to get the effect So suddenly it becomes very safe, and in fact you're just going, well, why don't I know you're spending an infantry point to do something, but it's like, I'm going to go spend my infantry point, I'm going to push to get the extra side rating, plus you can combine this with stuff like warp conduit and things like that to push it even further, and you're really pulling up one hell of a bad psychic phenomenon, and you're getting somebody else to suffer for, which for one infantry point, now it's still risky, but you could really end up in a situation where you're giving something, like where you're basically making somebody else pay the cost for this, and you're getting off very lightly. I haven't seen one in action. I've seen the 2 Chaos Legionnaires in action. The next one is the Idolatrix Magus of Forge Pollux. Forge Pollux is one of the forges on the Hollows. So you've basically got these 2 Dark Mechanicus. They're detailed in the core book, but they're given a lot more detail on a world called the Hollows, which is really messed up. Only could exist in a warp area where almost it's like a hemisphere. They've hollowed out half of the other side of the world. You know, half of the world is gone. You've just got like crumbling little bits of it left there. They've got a very cool picture of in this book. And there are these 2 forges that are fighting for each other. When you go into the background, they were the 3 forges were found in this world. They were all unified, but one of them was gotten rid of, and the 2 guys started fighting between them. It's quite cool background and details on the Hollows in the book later on. But this is your guy from Uptick Forge. It's basically, because you're starting from higher level, it's like playing a heretic, except for you have the psychic trait. You start off online with these. The Sorcerer's Casal are Tzeentch aligned. These guys you start off online. I wouldn't have so much of a problem with these guys. You know, starting off the abilities that you're able to get side rating, but the cap for your side rating is your corruption point bonus. So you're never going to be competing exactly with the psychers in your group, not on the same level. But you've got the heretic stuff and that, which is pretty cool. And the heretic, well, he's got more XP to throw around in you, so he can be better in different areas. Then they've got a section dealing with various equipment. They have some co-peshes out there for you Thousand Sun fans, which should work out pretty well. Haven't seen any of those being deployed yet. They've got the Tzeentch Inferno Bolts to send for. A lot of the things in this they've actually started doing something nice with. A lot of the equipment that's God aligned goes, oh yeah, no, you have to be aligned to that God for that to have an effect. I would have liked if they taught out in the book, because if you have a plague knife, I really don't like the idea of someone unaligned, unless they're trying to earn Nurgle's favour. I can kind of get away with that, and even unaligned I can keep up with it a bit, but I do not like the idea of a Cornate guy or a Slaanesh guy or a Tzeentch guy using a plague knife. It's a Nurgle thing, but they started putting that in here, and later on in Tome of Blood that it's very focused. You get some nice bits of some odd stuff like magma armor, some pretty cool stuff, and you have shimmering robe, which is really cool. Depends on your psi rating. It's a force field. But they've got lots of nice little bits of gear, unusual, very Tzeentchian bits of gear, and they have some additional minions, which I didn't really talk about minions too much in the Black Crusade, because I don't want to review the Black Crusade itself. Minions by large are okay. They have some troll wizards here, which are lesser minions, but you can get multiple ones by using the regular minions, and in the greater minions you can get more than one. That's the way they're handling it with this guy, so you can have loads of troll wizards. The problem is that, well, I think their ability might be a little bit, once more, making things a bit safe. Now, it depends on the way the GM's running it. If the GM is making you be able to pick up more troll wizards on a regular basis, because when minions die, they're replaced, it's not a problem. The problem is that when you're after generating psychic phenomenon or something like that, you can make them make a challenging plus 0 toughness test. Now they've got a toughness of 20, so they're probably going to die, but you can basically ground the psychic energies in him. He dies if he fails the roll, or he's okay if he passes the roll. And it's not so much a problem, it's just if people, it could very easily start being abused when somebody just starts pushing every turn and having their troll wizards just start dying off. And if the GM starts letting them replace those guys very regularly, you're really artificially buffing it. Of course, you have to spend XP in these, not so much a problem. They have the Glimmerwing. I don't have too much of a problem with the Glimmerwing. Glimmerwing is okay. The Rubric Marine, I have the same problem with him that I have for the all greater marines. Really, you end up with a lot of traits. You don't end up with that. You don't end up with that many stats, except for in the case of the Rubric Marine, they gave him a dash for his fellowship, and a lot of his stats are very low for obvious reasons. If you know their background, they're Thousand Suns guys who aren't sorcerers, and that means they're walking automatons, is one of the ways they've been described, guided by their allies. But they went a little bit. They're quite powerful. Greater marines in general can be quite powerful. The problem is that if somebody gets high enough infamy and high enough fellowship, they can get them very early in the game, and they can easily outshine their allies. This is in general with all greater marines. Plus the fact that they gave him the Inferno bolts, the Tzeentch basically Inferno bolts, because on the tabletop they have these. But your guy is your sorcerer, whoever, is supposed to be your character is supposed to be providing these guys with all the equipment they get. I think giving them Inferno bolts you don't necessarily need to do. You just have to note that yeah, these will usually be equipped with these, except for you don't get them by default. Giving them a bunch of Inferno bolts is a bit. Well, you have to replace them as soon as they use them. They have a big section of psychic powers, and I'm thankful to say that it's not all just Tzeentchian psychic powers. They have various general psychic powers, including new disciplines, and online ones they have. But I think it's pyromancy, a few of the ones they have in Dark Heresy and things, as well as psychic powers for all the gods except Khorne, as well as new exalted powers. It works out pretty cool. I haven't seen all of them in use yet. I'm somewhat wary of them. I plan on taking a lot of my players of anything outside the rule book for Black Crusade. You're gonna have to run it by me. I'm generally been okay with a lot of stuff, but not everything. They have expanded rules on rituals. Not a particularly big section, but you know, it's fun. I haven't seen any of my players getting into that yet. They have a section on investigations, which I'm not in love with, but some people just want to deal with investigation like quickly out of character. You could just kind of go, yeah, give me this role and this thing, and your character's there for a small time. I can definitely see a use for it. I just wouldn't make regular useful. Now, these things like, oh, you're making this test, and it can take for the really difficult tests. It's like, oh, it's minus 30, but it's going to take like D5 years or something. I think that's some of the 1d5 years for very hard minus 20 tests. But that's for example, this is learning the full true name of a greater daemon. It's like, okay, you're taking D5 years. It's minus 20 check, and if you fail, you've just wasted 1d5 years. If you convince the rest of the group to stick around, that's cool. You have additional details on the Screaming Vortex, which I quite like. You've got Cassal, which is a pretty funky Tzeentchian aligned world, lots of sorcerers, and these are the guys that first season, they're supposed to make very cool ships, to make spaceships. They're only interested in souls, in trading. Whether these souls come in some kind of contained form, like if a jar filled with like 10 souls, like, well, I've used my Eldritch Magic to put in here, or, well, we've got 10,000 slaves. It's like, okay, cool. They'll trade in that. It can be quite powerful. They have an adventure at the back of the book set at Cassal. They have rules for demon engines coming in here. I don't mind the demon engines so much, but in some of the later on stuff, to bring in demons is because I didn't recognise all the demon engines for different things, but I've just kind of taken more closer look at them lately. And the fact that their mechanics aren't like a vehicle, where I'm used to do rites of battle stats for a Defiler, and I'm looking at the guys in Tome of Blood, which are along similar lines to this, and they've stats a lot more like a character who just has a very high machine trait. I don't particularly like it. It's not my cup of tea, but I have access to the other books. It will do. I'm guessing they probably didn't want to put in. They don't have rules for vehicles yet in Black Crusade. You can steal them very easily. I'd recommend only ones look quite good, but you have them from, you know, Into the Storm or Rites of Battle. You can definitely just bring them in, especially Rites of Battle, because you actually have chaos vehicle stats in that. But you can make it work. They also have the Hollows, which the Hollows is pretty cool. With the Dark Mechanicus guys with different forges, and they're specialised in different things. One of the guys is called the Exo Spectre, and then they have great details about him in the main book. So when I threw him into my game, I had him ridiculously huge. The Space Marine characters are coming up to his knee. I just had him augmented to hell and back, and the players are instantly like, even the Chaos Space was like, okay, I'm not messing with him. And he was just ridiculously blunted to the point, but they were like, I'm not messing with this guy. He's huge. He's clearly gained a lot of favour with the Chaos Gods. Some funky new, each of the worlds has some funky little bad guys and stuff they've got in there, as well as an area of space called the Cat's Cradle is one of the other places to put in, which is really good. Really messed up Tzeentchian influences here. Quite cool. That basically, if you're a powerful enough psyker, you can go there and you can twist reality itself, because you're in a warp zone, but this particular area of warp zone, you can twist reality itself and create what you want. I really like it. They've got a couple of other worlds here, additional stats for things, and they start bringing in stats for stuff like the Disc of Tzeentch and more Tzeentchian demons, as well as a Demon Prince. And they have rules for Necrons. Now they have rules for Necrons in the main book a little bit. This expands upon it, as well as Necron worlds that might, this worlds that might be Necron Tomb worlds. They expand upon the sheer number back. Like, you get Necron and Horde stats in here. So if you really want to put Necrons into your campaign, you can put them in here, and it works out pretty well. I haven't fielded these guys so much. Actually, I did. I fielded them into a Death Watch game. I haven't used them in Black Crusade yet. And they have a section where they have the stats of Necron weapons, which I know a lot of people are going to not particularly like. They have the stats of Necron weapons, and rarity is basically on the unlikely event that occasionally these weapons don't phase out. They've got to go off and make a really difficult test, and if you succeed in these really difficult tests, you could potentially start wielding Necron weapons. I don't particularly love the idea myself, but different campaigns work for different people, and I'm certainly, if a GM wanted to do that, as long as it don't become ridiculously common, I wouldn't have a problem. They have the adventure at the back, which I've run. It's a bit of an odd one. I ran this recently, finished the adventure up last week, and it's set in Casal. Some parts are very well thought out. It's quite a freeform adventure. I'm still mulling over Tome of Blood at the moment. Got to read through the adventure. I've read through a lot of stuff and implemented a lot of it, but I'll deal with that another time. But they've got some nice stuff in this. I have to admit, if nothing I've listed out here is of interest to you or to your players, like if nobody goes, oh wow, look, I'd really love to play Thousand Sons Guild, it's like, there's not necessarily that much in here for you. There's a few bits extra gear, a few other things. With Black Crusade, the extra stuff isn't necessary unless there's an area you're particularly quite keen on. But I'm glad the money I spent on it. It's not entirely necessary, as I said, but it's not a bad investment if you really start getting into Black Crusade. I certainly wouldn't think, if you wanted to start trying Black Crusade, I don't think you need the book. If you already have it or somebody gives it to you, it's like, that's cool, but start by just playing the regular bog standard Black Crusade first, and then you can later on you can pick this up, especially to start at the lower levels. So I hope you found it informative, and I hope you have fun if you do decide to pick it up, and if not, I'm sure the Dark Gods won't I'm sure Tzeentch won't curse you in some horrible fashion. Okay, I'll see you another time. Goodbye.